Before I go into today's video, I want to give a trigger warning because I will be discussing EDs, food restriction, weight loss, body image, and similar topics. But with that being said, today we will be talking about this extremely sick trend that we all need to be aware of so that we can protect ourselves better. Sadly, the extreme diet culture is back in full force with this sick trend making a comeback, and we really need to discuss this because the media and many celebs are now actively promoting it. I cannot stress enough how bad this is because reducing women's body types to trends is not just annoying, but it can also be extremely dangerous. So if you've been on social media, especially TikTok, for the past few months, you've probably seen the term heroin chic, and all these people talking about how this 90s aesthetic is back in style. Now, the fact that there is an aesthetic named after a substance issue is bad enough, but wait till you see how the mainstream media is pushing this look on young girls and glorifying celebs like Bella Hadid and Kim Kardashian for losing weight. What also is very problematic is that some of these celebs who are rumored to be using dangerous medicine and taking other extreme measures to drop weight quickly while at the same time constantly posting photos of themselves eating junk food. Now, I want to point out that this video is not aimed at any celebrity personally, but these people are public figures, and if they get to enjoy the benefits of having huge reach, then I think they should also accept the responsibilities that come with that. So let's talk about this sick trend, and is it really making a comeback, and how can we stop it from ruining another generation of women? I want to give you a bit of context first because it's very important to remember that the fashion industry has always been toxic, and it's been capitalizing on women's insecurities for decades by constantly switching between body trends. You've probably noticed that a lot of millennials on social media are really upset right now about this 90s fashion aesthetic coming back, and that's because they got to experience how dangerous it was when it had its first comeback in the early 2010s. This trend first became a thing in the early 1990s when the high fashion industry promoted models that were extremely thin with flat, stringy hair, very pale skin, and dark under eye circles. Chic initially wasn't meant as a positive term, but the fashion industry quickly embraced it, and it was seen as a reaction against the trend of athletic, vibrant, smiling supermodels of the 80s like Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell. Smoking, substance use, tiredness, and a moody, depressed look were all glamorized, and models like Kate Moss and Jamie King became the it girls of that era. High fashion editors and photographers had the models posing in dirty bathrooms and cheap motels with smeared makeup and messy hair to mimic the look of an addict. But what's messed up is a lot of the it models in the 90s actually struggled with such issues, and instead of receiving help and support, their was turned into a fashion aesthetic. Sadly, it took a tragedy to get the media and fashion industry to finally stop promoting this dangerous trend. When a 21-year-old photographer, David Sorrenti, who used to photograph this trend and the models of the era, died of an OD, the media finally started paying attention to this trend. And though this trend fell off in the early 2000s with the emergence of Victoria's Secret bombshell look, the damage had already been done, and a generation of girls and young women had developed EDs, so the fact that this is now being promoted again is very disturbing. Sadly, many millennials remember how in the early 2010s this trend already had its first comeback, and unhealthy food habits were actively promoted and glamorized on the social media platform Tumblr with no trigger warnings, restrictions, censorship, or anything of the sort. And when I tell you that this was really bad, I mean it was really bad. Body positivity was practically non-existent, and fat phobia was completely normalized on Tumblr. And if you ask any woman who is a teenager on Tumblr in the early to mid 2010s, I guarantee you they'll have some horror stories to tell you. Of course, the fashion industry was behind this comeback because luxury fashion houses like Chanel again started using extremely thin models on runways and in campaigns. But like I already mentioned, the fashion industry constantly switches body trends And so a few years after the very thin look, it was time for a new era, the BBL era. By the end of the 2010s, Tumblr was completely overshadowed by Instagram, and the Tumblr girl aesthetic was replaced by the curvy hourglass look with an exaggerated behind, popularized by Kim Kardashian. According to one report by the International Society of Plastic Surgery, between 2015 and 2020, the number of BBLs performed globally grew by almost 80%. Suddenly, every other influencer on IG and TikTok looked like a Kardashian clone, and the BBL effect hashtag was constantly one of the most popular searched trends. But trends come and go, and the fashion industry will never let one body type be trendy for too long because they profit off of women feeling insecure. So, of course, as soon as body positivity became a thing, here comes a new era, and guys, they're actually trying to bring back heroin chic again. This real article was recently published in the New York Post, and it says that models like Bella Hadid, Lila Moss, and Kaya Gerber are bringing back the supremely svelte figures. You've probably noticed that for the past 6 months or so, a bunch of celebrities started dropping weight very quickly. Kim and Khloe both now look skinnier than ever, and they're also rumored to have removed their BBLs. Even celebs who have always been very slim, like Bella or Ariana Grande, are now trending for being extremely thin, and many fans have expressed concern over their frail looks. Now, like I said, this video was not meant to bash anyone, especially not Bella, because we all know she grew up with a mom who had a very toxic relationship with food. But what I've noticed lately is that Bella posts a lot of junk food related content, which is something Tumblr girls used to do back in the day to hide their food issues. During the early 2010s, the internet was flooded with such pro forums and websites where girls would share tips on how to convince people you're naturally skinny when in fact you're severely restricting. Many people have also picked up on the fact that a lot of Bella's content with food is made to look very casual and spontaneous, when in fact you could be looking at a whole ad paid for by the same industry that is now trying to bring this chic trend back. And whether Bella is doing this intentionally or not, it doesn't really matter, because I'm sure she can see how this type of content affects her young followers. You can already see the effects on TikTok, where people are using the "My name is Bella Hadid" audio to joke about doing body checks. This trend is very weird, because if people were joking about any other mental health issue, it would be shut down instantly. And this type of content just gives off toxic, pro-ED, Tumblr girl vibes. This is why I think it is so important to talk about this, because a lot of Bella's followers weren't even born when this trend made its first comeback, and maybe they don't realize how horrible that era was for so many women. And then there were also these stories that Bella recently shared with no context. This probably had something to do with her Lyme disease, but it's still strange to share these types of photos with absolutely no message attached to them. Not all people know that Bella has Lyme disease, and these photos are like textbook examples of what you could see back in the day on Tumblr when the sick girl look was glamorized. Now, as far as the Kardashians and their recent weight loss, here is another very problematic thing I want to mention. First of all, I know both Kim and Khloe work out a lot, but it's so weird how they allegedly chose to remove their BBLs as soon as the media announced that curvy is out and thin is in. But then there are these women who just naturally have this figure, and these women are now being told their bodies are no longer in. However, that's not even the most disturbing part. Rumor has it that Kim, Khloe, and other celebs who recently dropped a bunch of weight in a short amount of time are actually using a medicine called Ozempic that suppresses appetite. Ozempic is an anti-diabetic medication, and you actually need a prescription to get it. So the fact that these celebs are using their money and influence to take medicine away from people who actually need it is so disgusting. There have been actually a lot of reports that there's a shortage of Ozempic in the US, and people with diabetes are now at risk. This shortage is linked to the viral trend of Ozempic being blamed for Kim and Khloe's dramatic weight loss, because Google searches for Ozempic spiked to a record high 1 week after Kim's appearance at the 2022 Met Gala.
So something funky is going on with Ozempic, supply-wise. This is the first time where I've had kind of a little bit of trouble getting it. Also, it did not show up in my CVS app at all. I didn't get texts when it was in stock. And I had to call my doctor's office and be like, "Hi, have you sent my prescription yet? Because I really need it."
Now, Whether Kim and Khloe actually use this medicine for weight loss is irrelevant in my opinion. It's the fact that they still haven't bothered to deny it, and we all know how quick they are to clap back at people over false rumors. It actually seems like Kim and Khloe are soaking up all this attention they're getting for being so thin, and they simply don't care about any rumors or effect that they have on their fans. And again, I'm not bashing either one of these women for the way that they look, but I think that the very least that they could do is deny that they're taking weight loss supplements and tell their followers that this is not okay. But I'm not gonna hold my breath for Kim or Khloe to address this, so I think what we need to do as consumers of content is be very, very mindful of who we look up to. Please, loves, never forget that the majority of things you see online are put there to make you feel bad about yourself so that you can continue buying products that don't work and destroy your body to achieve some unrealistic ideal. And to end this on a positive note, let me show you some inspiring reactions to the media trying to reduce body types to trends.
No. We tried this before in the 90s and millions of people developed eating disorders. I had one for like 20 years. We're not doing this again. We're not going back. Our bodies are not trends. Our body shapes are not trends. Off.
I can have my Gucci on. I can wear my Louis Vuitton. But even with nothing on, they got the major look. I'll make you look, yeah.
Don't forget to let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and I'll see you all in my next video.